me have you.
Welcome back to the Brew Talks program. I hope our trusty engineers over here have put us back on the live stream. So welcome back to the live stream viewers, and welcome back to everyone here. And this is our final panel of the evening. Jay Richardson, all the way down there, way far away from me, from New Belgium. He's the general manager here at the Asheville facility. In the middle, Leah Ashburn from Highland Brewing, family owner, president of the company. Great to have you here. And of course, Adam Charnack, Highwire Brewing. We drove by your place last night.
Awesome.
And I think you guys closed at 10, so we couldn't get in. But hopefully tonight we'll be there.
Stay open late.
All right. Well, a big round of applause for these guys for joining me. I got to say that I asked like pretty much all of them like last week, and I'm shocked that they even emailed me back and said yes. So a little last minute planning on our part, but it all came together. And we're going to have a great discussion here about what's happening in North Carolina, basically talk about some of the trends, but also really explore the relationship between some of the bigger breweries here that have moved in and some of the homegrown breweries. So as everyone knows, obviously, in addition to New Belgium, you have Sierra Nevada here and Oscar Blues. And I was really interested to find out how those relationships have evolved and developed since they've come online, since those breweries have come online, and what about the marketplace has changed, out in the trade, and what about the businesses have changed? So we'll kind of start there. I guess I'll kick it to Adam, since you're the closest, and he gave me the best compliment right before we started. So
What'd I say? I have to do it again next time.
yeah, something about me being in HD right now. I know you guys just, pretty much launched within the last few years here. You moved to the Asheville area in 2012, but, even in that time frame, what have you seen as sort of the biggest developments trend-wise here locally in Asheville?
Well, I've been coming here since like a kid and been trying to move here forever, and finally was able to do so 4 years ago. And the industry is... basically mirroring what Kim was saying earlier. I mean, the industry has changed incredibly quickly. I mean, when we started in 2012, part of the tenet of our business was to put our beer into six-packs. And that was like cutting edge at the time, right? Very few breweries, Highland was doing it, and there were very few other breweries doing it. And between the time that we conceived the brewery and the time that we opened the brewery, basically every other brewery in town had kind of figured out that putting beer in six-packs was a good way to sell beer. So that's just like, that was 3 years ago, and since then it's obviously changed by leaps and bounds. And I think the big guys coming to town, I call them, I think a lot of us probably call them the big guys. I think it's generally been a good thing. I think first and foremost, I think Asheville, I like saying this, Asheville's got this reputation of being sort of the craft beer capital of the East Coast. Some people call it like the Napa Valley of beer, and I like to think of it as like, well, if you heard the term Napa Valley 20 years ago, I think that would have more of a regional relevancy, right? Maybe people on the West Coast would know what that means, would be familiar with Napa Valley, but maybe out in the East Coast less so. But now, obviously, it's a ubiquitous term. So I think that's what Asheville is in craft beer right now, and I think having the bigger guys come to town only helps raise the elevation on the profile, and it helps us get better at our jobs. I mean, we realize how to be more competitive in a more competitive landscape, knowing that, there are guys with lots of resources and professional expertise at our backs that are kind of pushing the industry forward. So, all in all, I think it's been a really good thing to have them, aside from the technical help that they provide and just sort of their support of the community and a host of other things we could talk about for a million years. I think on balance, it's been a really good thing.
Right. Now Leah, Highland is the, longtime established brand in this market. What are you guys noticing that's different from when you started versus today? What was the thought process when everything was being announced that Sierra and New Belgium were coming to town, as sort of the bigger player here in this market and the one that was the most established? What was going through your guys' minds?
Holy shit. We did not see this coming. So,
Starting in '94 as the first brewery in the area, first legal brewery since Prohibition in Asheville. There was not a ton of thought, and that was a luxury. We do not have that luxury anymore. So I agree with Adam. There are a lot more people coming to Asheville. That's an incredible thing and a great thing for all of us. There's also some other things that are really challenging. There's some price compression. There's challenge in finding qualified staff because we're all looking for qualified staff, and the pool is just not that big to fill it. So I'm really thankful to the local schools that have brewing programs now, and that's really helping.
Yep.
Yeah, cheers. Well done. So challenges and benefits together, we have to think a lot more. So we have been forced to up our game, and that in the long term is a really good thing.
Right.
We're thinking more strategically. We just made great beer in the beginning, and now it's, every brewery that opens they're making beer, but they also have marketing, and they have salespeople, and they have a venue, and they might have food right from the start. And these were things that we didn't even have retail until 2005? 2010 is when our tasting room opened, so we were already 16 years old.
Wow.
I don't think anyone can imagine not having a tasting room in this state for 16 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it has changed drastically.
I mean, totally different business model at this point. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Now, Jay, you were not on the team, I guess, that selected Asheville as a site. You sort of came in after that decision had been made, but you were tasked with building this place, essentially, overseeing the building of it, but also overseeing the building of relationships in the community, and being sort of that mercenary, almost, if you will, that goes out and starts to maybe talk and have these difficult conversations that Leah describes as holy shit, and put people at ease. What was that process like?
Yeah, in a lot of ways, I got to ride on the shoulders of early work that my coworkers did in selecting Asheville. Some of those tough conversations already had to take place. Kim, in fact, was part of a gathering with the Asheville Brewers Alliance to answer questions about, the holy shit reaction. Okay, well then let's talk about it, so that, by the time my family and I moved here, it was a warm reception, and it's only gotten more hospitable. There's no shortage of advice for New Belgium. Like when we were like, we want to make sure we're a good neighbor, not just a good neighbor brewery, but a good neighbor to residents, to other businesses, and the advice flows, and it's typically given to us in a loving way, that resonates with us. And so, in terms of feeling at home, we feel like it is important to commit to authentic relationships, and a lot of that is listening. And Kim mentioned earlier that we're a learning company, and we know how to make great beer. We have shown success in doing that and selling it, and we know how to be a brewery in Fort Collins. We had never been a brewery in Asheville. So that's learning for us, and the only way to do that is to ask and listen. And so hopefully we have done that, and we'll continue to do that.
Have they done a good job of that, Adam?
Yeah. Caught me off guard. That's why I don't like being in the hot seat. Also, I was reflecting on the fact that we've all gotten our shit bombs out of the way. Yeah. Everybody here's dropped it. So
now you're free to swear as much as you want. Yeah.
I think it's been great having them. Like I said, I'm more on the business side these days. I spent the first 2.5 years at the brewery pretty much drinking every day, and so I've
as it goes.
Well, it's one of the perks of the job, but I've kind of hunkered down a lot more in the last year, so I'm a little less out of touch with kind of our breweries and our brewers and how they interact with other breweries. But that's a whole other level of interaction. There's like kind of the owner's level of interaction, and there's sort of the staff level of interaction. And I know that New Belgium, Sierra Nevada, Oscar Blues, I know that some of the bigger guys here have been really great kind of partners for us when we're in a pinch for yeast, or when we need some $17 million piece of equipment to test our something or other, or whatever it is. They're there, and and shoot, attracting other companies like White Labs, who's opening up their an East Coast location here. It's going to save us 5 figures easily on dry ice, cold shipping of yeast across the country from San Diego every so often. So I'm pretty excited about that as well.
Yeah. I mean, Asheville has certainly become a hub for brewing businesses, beyond just breweries, and has created a lot of tourism as well. But that doesn't mean that the marketplace isn't challenging, that, getting out there and sort of rolling up your sleeves and being a more professional operation isn't something that you guys all had to learn. Well, maybe not Jay. At New Belgium, you guys were certainly pretty professional coming in, but certainly for Highland and for Highwire, you guys really kind of had to professionalize, as I understand it, pretty quickly. So how did you guys think about going through that process? And I'll kick this to Leah first, since you were just on the hot seat. Talk to me about, kind of working through that, whether it was a rebrand or hiring salespeople. How did you guys make decisions about, being a more professional operation now that, you sort of were forced to in a way, or influenced in a way, by having Sierra and New Belgium and Oscar Blues so close to your operation?
There are so many facets to that, and what I'm really proud of is that we led with beer. So our new brewmaster, I say new, but Holly's been with us a year and a half, right? About. So we started making beers that were more relevant, that were exciting to us, and totally exciting to people that want to drink our beer. It's really been, engaging from the inside out, and we're going to continue that. So from that start, then you get to things like, this felt like the right order to us. It wouldn't be for any other industry. Then we get into other strategic thinking. So whether that's how we're organized and how big our sales team is and all of those other things. But it started with the beer, and that's how the company started, was leading with beer. So that made sense, and we had this gift of people, the Holly and the brewing team, that was all about it, and have got us all excited about it.
So when did you guys really hunker down and begin that process? About a year and a half, 2 years ago? And was there like a deadline or a timeline that you knew, look, we got to get to this point, by this time, we got to have this rebrand done, we got to, rework the portfolio, we have to do all these things so that we're ready by a certain date? Or are you still going through that process?
Well, maybe we're not professional enough to set a date on every single thing, but we also built an event center. We've got this amazing rooftop bar, and so that was a big investment for us, in addition to the new packaging hall and the bottling line and the canning line. So y'all need to buy some Highland beer because we're out of money. But that's been part of this transformation too, and it continues. We have many areas that we can continue to transform. Look forward to it, and have. I mean, it's exciting that we can learn from New Belgium, we can learn from Highwire, and there's all these people that are doing cool things in different ways. You just borrow ideas from other people and create your own cool way of doing it.
Right. Adam, do you get out in the trade much?
When we open new markets, I'm adamant that I'm a part of that with our sales staff, and I do really enjoy it. It can be exhausting, but pity me, right? Get to drink for 3 days straight. I mean, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's important to me to, even if I have to be holed up in my, desk with, fluorescent lights 90% of my life, getting out there and meeting people and seeing what Savannah's like, or Charleston's like, or whatever. I mean, getting to see these great places and meeting the people who are selling our beer and buying our beer and enjoying our beer, that's pretty important to me.
Have you seen an evolution over the last few years that you could, I guess really start to point to and say, this is probably a result of the fact that, these companies have a beachhead on the East Coast. Hey, they got chain placements, or they got these displays, because now they're here in the South.
It helps. It's not automatic. I think the days of, just opening, selling your beer and hoping that every chain grocery store is going to pick it up from day one, that's over. I mean, maybe in some markets that might still be the case, but certainly not here. In the Southeast actually kind of lags behind a lot of the country in craft beer. it's certainly getting more competitive, but our reputation carries far, and it does. I mean, you know, I was in Savannah about a month ago, and we were launching that market, and you know, everybody knows what Asheville is, you know, and you go to Augusta, another market that's in Georgia that's, you know, kind of a different culture than Savannah is, and the same kind of reaction is like everybody knows what Asheville is, and even though we're not in the state of Georgia, I'm only picking Georgia places right now, but or whatever state it is, I mean,
right.
Even though you're not from that state, there's still a relevancy that you're from Asheville and that you're doing cool things, and so yeah, I get it. First and foremost, I think it starts with the beer, and it kind of grows out from there, but it's exciting to hear. I love going to vacation or going different places and saying, I'm from Asheville, North Carolina. And people say, oh, Nashville, Tennessee. That's really nice. And that's okay. Well, this market may not understand what's going on in Asheville. Or they may say, North Carolina, I've heard of that state before. You know, I mean, that's another reaction. That might mean they don't know exactly what's going on craft beer-wise. But when people say, oh, my God, Asheville, I was there for my cousin's wedding, or I went to the Biltmore, or I got drunk and don't remember what happened, or whatever, those are the kind of reactions that's like, okay, well, it's working. Like, it's proliferating out there, and these are our people. So it's exciting to kind of hear some of that.
Right. Jay, what kind of doors do you think, and you can speak only for New Belgium if you'd like, but I sort of think more broadly about the three breweries that I've mentioned, Oscar Blues and Sierra Nevada included. What kind of doors do you think that those companies are opening, your company, are opening for some of the smaller brewers by being such a well-resourced organization in a market that it sounds like, really could have benefited from that type of company existing here?
First, I want to point out, when Adam says he's drinking every day, I think it's important to say that every time when you're doing that in North Carolina that you were clocked out when you did it, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, we're just having fun here tonight.
Yes.
After 5 o'clock p.m.
I think what Adam was saying about the recognition of Asheville and maybe even Western North Carolina as a better beer destination is a contribution that I think larger breweries have helped bring about. Meaning the Convention and Visitors Bureau in Asheville has done a really effective job at marketing Asheville as a place to visit for the beer experience. And by mentioning brands that are national or close to being national, then with that comes just a little bit more name recognition. And so if someone that may not be familiar with local Asheville breweries sees that, oh, Sierra Nevada is in Asheville, and sees a picture of their brewery and their tasting room, then that adds maybe a little bit more recognition to the reputation that would draw somebody to visit here for that reason.
Right. But does that overshadow some of the other breweries that are here then? I mean, do you feel, and I'll kick this to Leah, I mean, do you feel that overshadows the 20 other breweries that are within a walking distance of each other on the south slope? I mean, we walked around the other night and it was like, kind of tripping over breweries. There's so many over there. And being able to come to a place and say, oh, well, New Belgium and Sierra are, names that I recognize, so I'm going to go there. Does that sort of hurt kind of what you guys were trying to build for yourselves?
I don't think so. I think anyone that's going to travel to Asheville, if they're traveling to New Belgium or Sierra, that's not all they want to see. And so we're 7 minutes outside of downtown, and there are lots of breweries downtown, and there are lots of other breweries in Western North Carolina. So there's just so much to do, and that tourist that is interested in that, they're gonna make the most of that visit and see everything that they can fit in.
Yeah. Have you seen an uptick in visitors to your brewery? Well, could you even have visitors before to your brewery? And
since 2010 officially.
Yeah, and since Sierra and New Belgium have opened, and Oscar Blues, have you seen more visitors coming by?
We have, yeah. The business has grown. I think I could probably safely say that for every brewery in Asheville, that we're all doing well. And there is a story that can I answer an earlier question?
Go for it.
This is something, I don't want to run out of time.
The floor is yours.
You were asking about how we all work together and examples of that. And one of the things that I'm most excited about is something that all three of us have been a part of, and a lot of other breweries in town. I got to work with Suzanne Hackett, who I'm looking at right now in the audience, and with the city of Asheville, who's super helpful. And so New Belgium and Highland in the city launched a program called Brewing for Greenways. It's now on its 8th brewery, with the next one will be the 9th. I don't know when that's happening, but they are rotating collaborations, and they all build funds that support Greenways in Buncombe County. So this will be our 9th. So that means that probably at least 18 breweries around those numbers have been involved. And it's just a really exciting thing. So we collaborated with New Belgium, and Alex came over and brewed with us for the first time. And then Highwire, you guys collaborated with
Ben's Tune-Up.
Ben's Tune-Up. And so it's just gone around town. It's been so much fun. It keeps going. So it doesn't tax any one brewery, but it keeps raising awareness of Asheville's, I think, need for safe passage for people that are not in cars, that want to go by bike or on foot or on rollerblades, because I still rollerblade because I'm from the 80s. So this is such a great project. Like, we say we're such outdoors people, but we don't have a lot of safe ways to get from A to B around this city. And I love this city, and it will be so much better if I can ride my bike to New Belgium, to Sierra Nevada, to downtown safely. So I just think it's a very long-term vision, but it's a really exciting one. And it was one that when I posed the idea to the Asheville Brewers Alliance, and I was like, hey guys, wouldn't it be cool if Asheville were the city where breweries built greenways? And they were like, yeah, that would be cool. So it just now rotates around, and we can all keep talking about it. It's awesome.
Is that a project or an endeavor that's easier to accomplish with the muscle of a New Belgium or a Sierra Nevada?
It is, but I can honestly say that they've not flexed their muscle. I mean, Alex came to, I mean, you can if you want to, if you really
Yeah,
feel.
Jay, you do CrossFit, right?
Shows more I do.
So Alex Dwynen came to Highland to brew, so it was on our pilot system. And then just last week, about 10 people from Highland went to Sierra Nevada, and it was around a 1-year anniversary, and we did a collaboration with them over there. So it's just more the joining together than it is about muscle, and I think everybody has operated in exactly that way.
Right. Now, beyond the 3 breweries that have come to town, there's obviously been sort of organic, more homegrown growth as well. In each of your minds, what are some of the pros and the cons of all that craft brewery growth here locally in Asheville, and I guess to a much larger extent North Carolina? Certainly, I mean, we could go. Rattle off the numbers, more than 170 breweries in the state now, and a ton here in Asheville, of course. I think 675,000 barrels of craft produced by in-state brewers last year. I'm assuming that, again, with Sierra and New Belgium starting to ramp up, I mean, you're looking at crossing over 1 million barrels here soon as a in-state craft beer production. But I'm curious to learn more about sort of the pros and cons of that, and as you continue growing, what are the challenges for smaller companies?
Well, I think part of the reputation of Asheville being sort of southeastern or East Coast, or however you want to view it, mecca for craft beer. Part of that is bringing people here so that they can take home that experience, so they can know what Asheville, when they drink a Highwire beer or Highland beer or New Belgium beer, they taste their experience here. I mean, I think that's a big part of it. So if it's a self-fulfilling situation where more breweries lead to a better reputation for craft beer, lead to more breweries, and that brings more people in town, I think that generally is a good thing, as long as the rising tide is floating all boats, and it has been. And I think it further elevates our profile. I can speak for us personally. I mean, we started in as our intention is to be, first and foremost, to have approachable beers, day in, day out beers. Our 2 of our top sellers are a classic 7-week lager and a brown ale that's kind of light-bodied, but still has a ton of flavor. And over the last year, we've had to kind of think, okay, well, how do we continue to remain relevant? How do we, 3 years old, and we have to, kind of think about those issues, right? That Leah's been, had 20 years in the experience in the industry, and so we're already having to kind of think about those things, and we've done a lot of cool different things and so I think having having more people more viscerally in town causes you to realize that, and more breweries in town is what I mean. And so, I think it's helped us push the envelope to do more fun things like the year-round GOSA that we've been doing, and our specialty program and our sour program, et cetera. So, I think there are always the pros and cons, right? I mean, the easy con is like, well, there's the tap handle situation. Like, well, there's more tap handle, only so many tap handles to be taken. But
Right.
I think at the end of the day, I think it's a good thing.
Right. How about for you, Leah?
What was the question again?
God, you're gonna make me remember. Pros and cons
Sorry.
of all the brewery growth here in North Carolina and Asheville. I guess you said it, Adam. A rising tide floats all boats. But what happens when the tide recedes?
Well, the tide's not receding. I hope it doesn't, ever. I think that, 12 point something percent is still the craft share. So, let's focus on the 88. I think that's smart if we all kind of look at that together. And you don't have to go far outside of the city of Asheville to find that the craft share is very small, right? So we can all do that really well if we think about it and we're smart about it, and I think that's possible. So it takes intention and thought to do that, because there's already real competition in craft beer, and there are some signs. I mean, if you look at grocery stores, doing post-off promotion type things used to be just a quote domestic beer thing, and now it's a craft beer thing.
Right.
And that becomes necessary as smaller and younger breweries package earlier and earlier and build venues that have food and all these things, and they're doing hospitality. So we're competing now, like Highland is competing now, not just with smaller breweries that have opened, but with larger breweries coming in. So it became like on-premise, like, ooh, taps. They're, we gotta watch that. Like, oh, grocery store shelves, we're all pushing for that too, but everybody's pushing for grocery now because people are getting into that earlier.
Right. Ultimately, what this all boils down to is creating a sort of loyal drinker that continually comes back to your brand. You guys have both sort of hit on the rotation nation aspects of it. Jay, how does New Belgium create brand loyalty within its set of drinkers, and specifically thinking about kind of your entry here into Asheville? How are you going about creating some of those customers locally that can be your brand champions or your brand advocates?
Well, it's been said a few times here tonight, both with Kim and on this panel, that it starts with the beer. The best beer we can possibly make is where we begin. And a big part of that is also listening to our consumers. What are their palates telling them they want to drink? And then following that with just being very authentic and honest with who we are as a company. What our values are, what's important to us, about what things outside of our business do we support in our community. And then by doing that, we're hopefully making relationships with locals that share those same values. And then it follows that you hang out with people you like to hang out with. And so we just let that magic do its thing.
Well, I definitely want to leave some time to make sure that everybody has a chance to get a beer and network. But some final sort of rapid fire questions for you guys. Jay, you talked about coming to town and really learning from people here. What are the top 3 things that New Belgium has learned in the last 4 years, or 3.5 years, I suppose, of building out this facility?
The most prominent thing we learned is that Haywood, which runs Haywood Road, which runs through West Asheville, is essentially Main Street for West Asheville. And that is not a place where large trucks belong. Hey, like I said earlier, we have 25 years of experience operating a brewery in Fort Collins. We just started operating one in Asheville that's new to us. If we didn't ask our neighbors to tell us when we were missing something, we wouldn't have learned that.
Right.
And they spoke up, and we've made some changes with how we handle truck traffic, and now the city of Asheville is starting to make changes that are going to help us and other businesses that receive deliveries via truck to keep trucks off of Haywood. So that was the most prominent thing we learned.
So ask questions.
Yeah. We learned from Tim Schaller, who owns Wedge Brewing across the river, to be careful and sensitive about what local sponsorships we pursue. Because we need to recognize and honor the history of beer sponsorships that have been going on long before we got here.
Interesting.
I said that about, we were clocking out before we're drinking beer, mostly in jest, but it reminds me that Brian Grossman at Sierra Nevada really opened our eyes to the nuances of alcohol law in North Carolina. And we continue to learn about that. I think all of us are learning how to navigate that, but that turned out to be a pretty big learning early on.
Right. Interesting. I mean, and I asked that question because Asheville is not unique in its situation where there are breweries moving into a town from afar. So in Virginia, obviously, you have breweries moving in, whether it's, Ballast Point or Deschutes. This is happening in other parts of the country. Stone, you have even Brewdog coming over now into Ohio from Scotland. So clearly there is a desire for some of these well-resourced, well-funded, bigger organizations, craft organizations to expand with secondary facilities in places that they might not be familiar with the alcohol laws or the sponsorships that they should be pursuing. On the flip side of that, Leah, what are maybe 3 ways that Highland has improved its business or the way that it operates? 3 specific ways, 3 things that you guys have learned about how to be a more professional organization since New Belgium moved into town.
I might not have. That's working.
Yeah, a lot going on here.
There we go. I think there's several ways. One that I think of quickly is HR. Hiring an HR professional who has developed our hiring practices, looked at our benefits really carefully, all kinds of things that have turned out to be better for our employees. Looking at our whole team and kind of evening out some benefits. When you start out and you have an owner and a head operator, and then you hire people off the street to pack the beer, you have different levels in the brewery, and you might have different benefits. And over time, those things kind of morph into positions, and then after a while you go, oh, wait a minute, we're treating people differently, and that's not right. So that's something that has improved. And the beer, I have to go back to that. And we were inspired before the big boys moved into town, but it definitely gave us a little more sense of urgency to be better, to be more us, and to define that. And we're still working on it. And I'm excited about it because I think our story is always going to be real about Asheville. It's always going to be about this guy who is Chinese that grew up on an island that came to the U.S. and now owns a Scottish brewery, and that makes no sense anywhere but here. So I will never get tired of telling that.
One of the quirks that makes it unique, for sure. And I guess for Adam, I'll ask you, and I think that mic probably works, but I can pass him back. Being sort of the newest business on this particular panel, what are some of the ways in which Highwire is going to succeed in a saturated market such as Asheville? How are you going to go about creating success for Highwire, and long term, sort of what's the strategy for you guys as you look out into the future and you see a business that has become so much more complex from the point of view of an entrepreneur that really just got into this a few years ago, what's going through your head as you look out and figure out how to succeed in such a crowded marketplace?
I was hoping you would ask the same question you asked Leah, because that was the one I had prepared for. But it's actually, your question's pretty damn similar.
This is the risk you take getting on a panel with me.
And I'm in the hot seat too. I knew that coming in. Thanks, guys. Beer. Beer is number one. I mean, I think quality is for granted. I don't want to take it for granted, but I think that's a given, right? I mean, I don't think I need to even talk about it because it's like so talked about since CBC, what was it, 2 years ago? Or like, right. I mean, it was like, yeah, duh, right? Quality, get that right. But I mean, beer styles. I mean, the idea of like, these are the 4 beers that you make, and you're always going to make them, and those are going to be the beers for the rest of your time on Earth. That's a very difficult business model to pull off. The beer trends changed so dramatically, and I mean, we could talk about that for probably forever too. But so first and foremost, I think is finding beers that people want and that are relevant, and making them. And so that's first and foremost, is to continue to innovate in beer. And then 2, I think, is sales. And I think it's something that I've opened my eyes to a lot. And I think that's probably the biggest part of professionalizing, if you will, is investing in your sales team. Again, 3 years ago, we opened our doors and we were out of beer. Like, that was a good problem to have, right? And then we spent 2 years, going to bars and people saying, that's a good problem to have. And it's like, well, we still need to solve the problem of not being able to make enough beer. Right. Because it's, that was something you can do 2 years ago, is open a small brewery and sell all your beer. And as you grow, you learn that, you really need to kind of learn how to make sure that you're relevant in every market that you're in. And that also extends to making sure you have more fun, handsome people like versions of me in the markets that we're in, so that we can be a fun brand that's relevant in other markets and build on not just our beers, but what we're doing back here at home. And that's to the third point. What we're doing back here at home is another thing that we've invested in is our community building, and that's spearheaded by, I think, our events and social media staff. What they're doing is doing what we've always wanted to do. We've always wanted to do movie nights. We've always wanted to do anniversary parties with Ferris wheels in the parking lot, which we did about 2 months ago. It was insane. Nobody died, I promise. And the state came out and inspected it, so it was a kosher, good deal Ferris wheel.
All legit.
All legit. Anyway. But yeah, investing in doing those sorts of things we've always wanted to do, which is to show the community that we care. And one way of doing that is to sponsor different folks, be part of the community, have events. A brewery's tap room is a good like third place, right? It's a good like not work, not home. It's a good place to kind of hang out, and that's community. That's what community is. And so we had not been able to do that previously. We didn't have enough space or time or resources or whatever. And now that that's the last thing that we're doing. So I think you throw all that together, and I think that's our future is building on good beers that people want, finding the right ways to tell people about those beers, and being true to who we are.
Interesting. I like it. All right, final word from all of you guys. Now that New Belgium is celebrating its 25th anniversary, and on September 2nd, as I understand, opening its doors for brewery tours officially, certainly the tap room's open, but really starting to exist as a fully functioning brewery here, without any orange fences around or anything. Looking ahead, what does the future look like for craft in Asheville and beyond here in North Carolina? And I'll start with Jay.
I think outside of Asheville, maybe even outside of Western North Carolina, that the challenges are going to be what Kim and you talked about earlier, that the distributors, the distribution tier, the retail tier, they're going to force some corrections at some point. And that's going to work itself out like it works out. I think that there's a unique aspect in Asheville in that few weeks ago, I heard our mayor mention that we get 10 million visitors a year.
That's a lot.
Whatever, I don't know what the percentage of population enjoys beer, but whatever percentage of 10 million, that's a lot of demand that I think makes the Asheville market, Western North Carolina, unique. And so I agree with Leah that it's still a rosy outlook for better beer consumption in Asheville.
Right. Leah, the future of craft in Asheville and North Carolina.
I think it's really strong, and I'm always struck by the memory of being at the Craft Brewers Conference a few years ago when the 5 top states for craft beer growth were shown on a map, and 4 of them were on the West Coast, and then was a red dot in North Carolina. So something is happening here, and it's for real, and we're leading the East Coast. We're leading 3/4 of the country, if you want to look at it that way. So I think that, again, like if we all keep our heads in the game and do this well together, that we will all succeed beyond our wildest dreams. Which is kind of funny because my dad's wildest dream was like having a hobby in a basement with some beer in it. So it's already done that. But we're in a different place now, and we have lots of people that I feel it's really important to me to have them feel engaged and satisfied and challenged and accomplished. So it's a much bigger thing that keeps me up at night. And that's why it's so important to me that we do this well.
Stewarding the brand, I like it. Future of craft in North Carolina.
I'm going to tie in what Leah was saying too about the Greenway project that she's been spearheading, and I have a similar passion. I chair our city's transit committee, trying to get our buses to basically run more often. So I think the city has been doing, it's a partnership, right? Public investment and private investment follow each other, and so we've done a really good job. The city's been doing an incredible job, I think, of really investing in the things that we need to build off the craft beer community that's going on here. A lot more tourists. In the South Slope, our brewery, we had a sidewalk that was falling apart that was like 3 feet wide, and then about a year after we got built, we opened, they widened it. Many of y'all probably remember when they did that, and now it's like 6 feet wide, and it's insane. Like triple the amount of people are using the sidewalk, lo and behold. So it works. And so if people are coming to town and we're building this ecosystem, this infrastructure of a beer city USA, and the city's investing, putting its money where its mouth is, opening up Greenways and other infrastructure investments, it's cool. I'd like to see that continue to grow. I'd like to see Asheville really take advantage of the fact that we brew some of the best beer in the country. We have some of the highest density of craft breweries on the continent, and we should be that destination that people can come to, and then when they go home, know that they had a kick-ass experience here.
All about community over at Highwire. I like it.
Boom.
Awesome. Well, listen, guys, really appreciate the time. Really, really, really appreciate you guys joining this panel on such short notice. I know I only asked last week, so thank you. And thank you to everyone for coming out, and New Belgium for hosting. This has been wonderful. Big round of applause for everybody one last time. Looks like we got at least a half an hour to hang out, get another beer. If you like what we did here tonight, we do similar discussions for a full day at our business conference. Our next one is coming up on December 1st in San Diego, so we would love to see some of you there, and let's have a beer. Cheers.